Welcome to the Soul Health Mentor podcast with Nadia Kraus. Learn how to move your awareness out of your mind and into your heart so you can embody your divinity, experience joyous peace of mind, and create your most vibrant life by opening to receive your soul's sacred medicine. Welcome back to the Soul Health Mentor podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Joanne Clark. She's the author of Exquisitely Bored, and she has over 25 years of marketing and PR experience in global roles with some of the world's largest brands. She is the founder of the company Exquisitely Bored, but she also wrote a book about it. And we're going to talk today about why living longer and living younger has us rethinking retirement. Welcome, Joanne. It's so wonderful to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Nadia.
Absolutely. I want to start us off by talking about the traditional sense of retirement and how you wrote this book to refine it, right? To redefine it. So let's talk about what is the traditional way of thinking about retirement? What's out there? What do you think?
So, the traditional definition of retirement is still very much a stereotypical uh, perception, right? So, it's very much tied to an age and it's a social construct. So, I talk about the history of retirement in my book. And if we take a look at that, we realize that it's actually a 120-year-old antiquated definition of retirement, and it's certainly man-made. So I think when we look at how we are living longer and living younger, and how we are now as an aging population, and some of the differences throughout the decades and to where we are now, that it's time to have conversation about what that notion of retirement looks like, because I don't think that it will be the same for the future generations either. So very much, sort of breaking down and deconstructing the traditional definition and starting to have conversations around, what no longer serves us as a population or society or community as it pertains to the old definition of retirement.
Yes, yes. I think it's absolutely time to redefine it. And I just wanted to share with you, I just wanted you to know that I actually was a bit of a rebel always. I never really liked the traditional way of thinking about work and retirement. So I'm originally from
Hmm.
Germany, and in Germany, it's a good system. Like there's universal health care, there's a lot of leave, and everything there's a construct that is very
Hmm.
comfortable and safe. However, I was always someone that I wanted to follow my passion. I wanted to follow my heart. And I'm an
Hmm.
and person. Like I'm not an either or, but an and person. So the
Hmm.
kind of thinking that kind of goes, I'll just work now. And then when I retire, then I will follow my heart. Or either or, right? Work now and
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
have fun
Hmm.
later. And for
Hmm.
me, it was
Hmm.
always, how can I do that now? So you also touch on that in your book. Would you say that
Hmm.
you've experienced retirement actually as a doorway, like a threshold into a new world?
Hmm. I think that's a perfect way of describing it. And I think, like we were just talking about the traditional notion of retirement, I think, that's what it's perhaps lacking is looking at it as your what's next. And instead of seeing it as retirement as, a hard stop, it's what if we were to look at our life as one long term so that even in our regular career, we could be thinking about, what am I really good at? What do I enjoy doing? And then what skills do I have? And how could I maybe segue that into something for my next term instead of seeing retirement as this hard stop? So I like how you reference it as a threshold into my what's next. So maybe you reach an intersection of, you know, financial freedom, maybe it's working part-time and it's just a different version of what this can be so that, you know, you can experience using your skills and your talent and finding something you're passionate about. And instead of seeing it as a hard stop, it's, you know, the threshold of something really exciting and inspirational. And we're seeing this more and more. I'm not the first person to, you know, sort of blow the cover off of this, to use a book reference, but I think that increasingly more we are seeing people, regardless of age, doing some pretty interesting, ambitious, smart things. And I definitely see it as a threshold into, you know, decades more of living. And there's so much time left for creativity and prosperity, right? And vitality.
I love that. And I really do love that in your book, you actually share your story. You share the challenge that happened when you did retire and what you faced, and that there was so. And before we get into that, I love the name Exquisitely Bored. Tell us how that came about.
So before I, you know, retired, um, we need to retire the word retirement. Um, I had been curating this Instagram handle, and I've always had a passion for um, interior design and architecture. And way back when I first started my career, I had a small interior design firm, and I ended up going more into the marketing side of things for my career. But I have maintained this obsession, is let's be honest, with all things home decor, design. It's an extreme passion for me. And this Instagram handle became this creative outlet for me. And I called it Exquisitely Bored because these vignettes and these pictures I would take, whether they were in my home or someone else's or something I saw in a store. I did, and I still do a lot of promoting for local businesses and services to do with whether it's home accessories or design, products, this kind of thing. And, you know, I would post these beautiful pictures and it would allow me to edit the photos and really curate these little squares, right? And sharing that every day, you know, I would receive comments from people. They were like, I just love your photography. I love your view of stopping in the middle of a day and making a really pretty thing out of just something I can see from where I'm sitting. It could be something outside. And then I started curating this under the handle Exquisitely Bored. And, you know, that sort of led to finding something I can now use my skill, talent, and find income earning power once I sort of reached that threshold, as we're calling it, of retirement. And that's what I did. It then became the name of my business. So I create content for interior designers, lifestyle brands, all these things that make our lives pretty and beautiful. And it's escapism too, right? People love to look at beautiful images. And the fact that I now can write and do marketing for some of these design firms is what I found at my retirement threshold was I'm going to take a skill and a talent I have and I've used in a career over many decades. I'm now going to match that with something I'm really passionate about. And it's quite amazing that you can still find income earning power. And I think that society has us under this impression that because retirement's tied to an age and it's you know, you're sort of put out to pasture, so to speak. I'm trying to inspire, like let's remove age from it. And, you know, we all have these skills and talents, and there's a way to still make money at this. It could be the most simplistic form. You know, it could be volunteering and giving back, but I start here for people. I raise the bar in the sense that, you know, I think you can still do things and earn an income from that. And lots of people want to supplement their retirement, or they just plain can't afford to, right? That is the reality of the economic times we're living in, which is why my concept of this and my message is so timely. And again, it's just so based on an old-fashioned notion of how old we need to be to retire. But so Exquisitely Bored was born out of that, those beautiful everyday moments. And it's the opposite of the glorification of busyness, right? It's about being bored, doing wonderful, beautiful things, and things that can even, give you an income stream when you're retired.
I love that. I love that name because it's so multi-layered. Recently, my husband found a YouTube video. I think it was by a psychologist that was talking about boredom and literally saying that society today cannot handle being bored. Literally, when someone is standing at a traffic light, a
Mhm.
pedestrian standing at a traffic light, they pull out their phone because they have to wait for 15
Mhm.
seconds.
Mhm.
So the part
Mhm.
where you said these beautiful moments, let's
Mhm.
just be. And for me, I imagine that someone that has been working in a career for all their life where they
Mhm.
didn't have time to do that, that
Mhm.
moment of retirement can be really tough because all of a sudden there's all this time to think. And I think it can drive people
Mhm.
crazy. What is your experience?
Yes, and if you look at the statistics, so these are interesting because because I might not be the typical face of a retiree. So that was a bit of an elephant in the room for me when I launched this book. And because I'm trying to remove age from it, okay? People are able to do different things at all sorts of different ages. And it doesn't matter what age you sort of enter this threshold, retirement is going to present, I think, some of the same complexities, socially, emotionally, financially as well. So I think that the being able to remove some of that traditional construct around it is allowing us to see um, more potential for people returning to work as well. So some of the stats in Canada, 1 in 3 people return to work after they've been retired. Okay, so we have a high number of people re-entering the workforce. And the reasons the data cites is, wanting to stay relevant, wanting to stay engaged, wanting to stay, in touch with whether it's technology or a peer group, and out of boredom. And in the US, that number is 20%. And they cite similar reasons. So boredom, wanting to stay, connected to um, and continuous learning is a big one, right? So we have these segments of people retired, but they're returning to work. So it really doesn't matter the age or whatever of someone who wrote this book. My point is that people are going back to work, and the majority of that data tells us that it's for those reasons. Some of it is for financial, but the majority of the data is supporting that people are wanting to find a purpose, and they're wanting to have a reason to use skills and talents that they spent, decades honing. And I think you and we did talk a little bit about this before we jumped on the podcast. Is some people don't have the luxury of working in something they're passionate about. They've had to put food on their table, clothe the kids, gas in the car. And, later on, like as they experience this threshold, whether they're working part-time or whatever they design that to be for them, it's very exciting to tap into things and skills that you may not even be aware that you have. And with technology now, we all really have a level playing field because no one knows your age behind a keyboard. AI is completely leveled the learning for all of us. It doesn't matter what age now, nobody knows what's going on with AI. So we all have this opportunity to learn something new and to challenge the elasticity of our brain, because we all know as we age that that is something that will diminish as well. And, I'm just trying to give people a message of inspiration and to buoy their confidence, because we lose that too as we age.
Mhm.
And, I want people to know that they're not an age, they're not a pension number, they're not just a pickleball player and all these stereotype things that you do when you're retired, that, there are skills and talent and things that, can be taken advantage of, and that there's a whole world and a positive side to how many years left we have to live. Statistics Canada tells us after 65, as a woman, we have 22 more years to live, and as a man, it's 20 years. So those are just, decades of opportunity versus just kind of going the way society tells us we should. So
Yes.
I'm here to challenge that thinking.
Yes, I love that you are. And I it's so interesting you quoting, the data and what's going on. And what really struck me in your share is that so many go back because they want to feel purpose, they want to feel useful, they don't
Hmm.
want to feel lonely, they don't want to feel bored, and they still go back to what they know, right? They go back to what they
Hmm.
know. And I'm here to challenge, as the author from Dreaming to Done, and really like a soul map for finishing what you were born to do. Maybe there's this dream that didn't have space to come to life. And this could be
Hmm.
a time where you bring that dream to life, and you have that beautiful story about the daylilies. And that's the inspiration for your book cover, of this man
Hmm.
that had to retire at 50 and discovered his passion and love for daylilies, and grew this beautiful, and still
Hmm.
grows this beautiful garden at 87 and sells them, right? This is a perfect example of sometimes our soul holds a dream that cannot even speak to us because we're always busy. Because we're always busy, busy. We're never
Hmm.
bored. We're always busy. And in those moments, you mention it so beautifully as the moments of capturing beauty, and the in those bored in quotation marks moments. In those moments where we just stare at a tree, something can come, something like a whisper. So I love how you are doing what you are doing, challenging retirement and that thinking, and then also how we can dance the dance together, in the sense of let's dream a new dream. And that's just something that I think is important too. Yes, you can go back to work, absolutely, to feel useful, but you can also create something new. And would
Hmm.
you say, when you were in that moment of, I'm creating this new business, this new thing, was there a moment that was really hard for you?
There was. And I think that has to do with if you retire and take some time and then re-enter. So I think the phases I talk about in the book um, aptly describe how complex and difficult some of those phases can be. So I had to untangle then from being retired. And it was really difficult because sometimes you have to leave what no longer serves you. And I think that, to get your mission accomplished, and people pick up on those energies, right? So
Mhm.
they notice when it's sort of like, uh-oh, someone's leaving the pack. What's going on here? Somebody's not not coming along for this ride. And I had to untangle, and I had to make myself unavailable to start my business, to do my prospecting and my sales calls. There were days where I just sat at my dining room table, my makeshift office, and people pick up on those energies. And in the book, I talk about it. I like what you said about being quiet and still. And that's one of the phases I write about is, the phases like the awareness phase and acceptance, where you're accepting this doesn't feel right. I'm not happy and I need to take some action. And I call it the still small voice in the book. And that can have, a religious connotation for some people. But that doesn't matter because we're all familiar with this idea of being quiet because only then can you receive. And I think those phases are really important to have an open heart and an open mind, and you have to let your ego go because in retirement you've done this wonderful thing, you've reached the goal, but to discover it's not maybe what you thought can be really disjarring for people. And I think, just letting go of ego and what you think it's supposed to be and just completely being quiet, still, and alone in the uncomfortableness of it and experiencing those emotions and being honest with yourself. And then, it's putting the work in because like a lot of things in life, it's not going to solve itself. So you have to go after your purpose, your dreaming and as you describe, you've got to finish the uncomfortable things that are happening to you and find a way through that and out the other side.
Yes.
So I think for me, it was difficult doing the untangling. And that's the message I'm trying to say for the younger generation is, look, while you are still in your career, and especially for the Gen X, who would be my generation, a lot of them are experiencing career pivots right now. So my message to them is, while you're already in your regular career, start thinking about, gee, what am I really good at? What is a transferable skill or talent that I could see? Maybe you would even do more learning around that while you were in your career, while you're in that busy learning mode, right? And then you could segue that into your what's next. You'd be on that threshold now, armed already with what your thing's going to be.
Yes.
And we don't have those conversations before retirement. We have financial conversations. You go in the financial planner's office, you talk about, the mortality rate calculator, how much money you have at whatever increment of age you are until you even take a guess at the number that you're going to die at to make sure your money matches. But we don't have any conversations about the social, emotional aspects of retirement and thinking through that ahead of time.
Yes.
People are just sort of really obsessed with this financial piece, and it gets very missed from what I'm seeing. And I think the younger generation can, has an opportunity to do this kind of thinking before, because retirement's going to go away for them. They're going to completely reframe this. So it's already happening. So I think just giving that some planning along with the financial is going to be something that you're going to see a lot more people doing.
So what I would love to talk about, which you have touched base on, is the part that is so uncomfortable. And I just want to rephrase it as identity loss, right? It's a chapter in your life, retirement, or even preparing a career change or going to a different country. Those are all things that can happen to us, and we lose our identity. When you go to a different country, you lose the people that know you. And so you have to figure out, who am I in this new country? And the identity part for me is the part that is not talked about. So it's talked about finances and how much money you're supposed to have. But who do you want to be? Who do you want to be, right? Do you want to be
That's right.
the mover and shaker until you're 75, 85, 95? Do you want to live life to the fullest? Or do you just want to have enough money and I think for me, as I'm Generation X as well, so I turned 50 in July, and I never had children, and that also it keeps you younger in a different way because you don't have that responsibility of over another human being. And I'm just sharing it because I know I'm 50, but I kind of feel like I'm 30, right? In the sense of I want to change the world. I want to have an impact. I want to be a mover and shaker. And I can so relate to identity loss because I've lived in 4 different countries and it's hard every time you lose yourself. And
Hmm.
so I would love for us, yes, to open this up to, yes, let's be smart about money. Yes, let's plan for money, but let's also talk about identity. Who do you want to be? What is your dream? If you could snap your fingers, right? If you could snap your fingers, what would you
Hmm.
want to spend your whole day doing if you didn't have to worry about money? Those are all, I love that you are bringing the younger generation in because I do believe that they are watching us and the baby boomers and saying, I don't want that. I don't want that. I think it's already happening where they're like, I don't want that. I want a different
Hmm.
life. And this is so important. And then it can become this time of, I do talk about finishing, but finishing is also just completion, right? Having that satisfaction of
Hmm.
completing a journey and coming into your own. It is
Hmm.
absolutely amazing. And I
Hmm.
want everybody to know about your book. So it is called Exquisitely Bored. And let's talk about where this book, like, do you have a website, your Instagram handle? Let's just talk that about where the listeners can find you.
Thank you. So the book is available on Amazon Canada and US. It's also available through the Amazon platforms in right now 15 other countries. And I'll be doing signings at Barnes and Noble in the US in November, in Toronto here as well. And my Instagram handle, where you can see all of those beautiful vignettes and home design from my clients' work, which is absolutely amazing, is also exquisitely bored. So you can find me there. And my website is exquisitelybored.com.
Wonderful.
So, but the Instagram is really where I think the brand comes to life. And it's a personal brand as much as it's a business brand. And when you truly land on something that you represent personally, um, that's real heart-centered living. And that's what I want people to be inspired by, because the dedication in my book, you touched on that, is a true example of somebody that was forced into retirement. And we forget about those other, instances that life throws at us. And not everyone can afford to retire. I think this is a big reality of, the economics that we're faced with. And for the younger generation, they're very anxious about housing and how they, kick off these careers in a very different world from even us as Gen X, and what that looked like for us has all completely changed. So the idea with my message too is we can remove the stigma. So it used to be very much about, if someone couldn't retire and they were older, like people would actually say, oh, well, you must be able to wrap things up soon. You must be able to retire. When are you going to retire? You're working so hard. And I think, this sort of dialogue will go away. And I think changing the narrative, having a movement will remove the stigma. So if people want to keep working or they can't afford to retire, that we give people permission to continue what they're doing. And it should not be tied to an age at all. And the response I'm getting, is amazing. Like I have 70-year-olds saying, I'm going to die with my boots on. And the energy and the, that I receive in return that validates my message. And the young people looking at me, I have nieces and they're like, Aunt Joe, you have given us so much with this book. Like and all their friends bought the book. And I mean, they're 23 years old, but they are already excited that, an old person, I would be old to them, is being an evangelist for them and preaching this message of let's get rid of some of these old-fashioned ideas and let's reinvent it and let's find ways that we normalize working no matter what age you are, so that people stay fulfilled and can find meaning in their next term.
I love that. And you, the listener, I want you to know that if you want to weigh in on the conversation, when you download the Podbean app, there's actually a comment section. So if you want to leave us a comment and kind of tell us what you think about this, we're going to do this together, right? We're going to reinvent the word retirement. Maybe we are all going to create lives we don't need to retire from, right? Things we love doing so much.
That's right.
Like dying with our boots on. I love that. It was so, so wonderful to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here, Joanne.
Thank you. Thank you, Nadia. It was an honor. I have been following and reading, and listening to your work for a while now. And it's so inspiring. And I think our messages were a really nice correlation. And I feel so privileged that we got to do this today and to make that connection together. Thank you so much.
Thank you for those beautiful words. I feel the same. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Soul Health Mentor podcast with Nadia Kraus. If you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and review at Apple Podcasts or wherever podcasts are playing.